universe just regurgitates a new experience, female and male minds operate completely different. Those around you within your karmic pathway hold a significant value. Welcome to the podcast for Earth's Conscious Generation. My name is Cass, and I am a holistic embodiment mentor for inner child healing, shadow work, and intuitive development. And I have created this space out of the inspiration to bring thought-provoking conversations around healing, mindset, and growth for you to take back into your home and have available to you for reflection to take your journey of healing deeper. And I can't wait to hear how this all lands for you. You can find me over on my Instagram page, both through Earth's Conscious Generation and Holistic Embodiment Mentor Cass. Before we explore today's topic, I just want to take a quick moment to express my gratitude, whether you are new to my podcast or whether you have been here before. Just expressing my gratitude for you taking the time to be a part of this conversation today. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to today's podcast episode. Recently, I've been diving into different layers and getting really deep in karma and specifically the link between our life purpose, shadow work, and our manifestations. I have been unraveling so many more layers to all of this than I already had explored previously. And today, I wanted to open up a conversation around how leaning into your life's purpose or karma, whichever word you want to lean on, can completely shift the way that we manifest and the results of our manifestations, as well as those who come in and out of our life. So I'm coming into today's session with the assumption that those listening already know what manifesting is and already understand how to manifest in its entirety of the foundations. A little bit of context before I jump too far in this conversation today. As a collective, we are very well informed that you're not limited to what you can manifest. You can attract and create an abundance of opportunities and pathways to explore in your life experience. You may have spent hours like myself focusing on how to create the life that aligns with your values, your desires, and your beliefs. And just like myself, you may have actually approached a point where your manifestations become less and less result focused and really start to recognize the true power of becoming magnetic rather than only tuning into manifestation when you have something specific you desire. The topic around moving away from result-focused manifestations is covered quite heavily in my masterclass Momentum, which you can find via the website. And whilst in itself it's an amazing conversation, and I'm a huge advocate for manifesting your reality and becoming more naturally magnetic, I invite you today to compartmentalize this topic and place it aside so as not to confuse yourself with manifesting within your karma, which is something we really have the ability to lean further into once diving into our inner work and shedding a lot of the shadows and mindset that are not serving us. I want to start today with a very short and simple explanation of what it means to manifest within your karma. Leaning into your karma, or as others like to call it, life's purpose, is essentially making the decision to step into opportunities that allow you to create impact as well as live a life that is not led from the ego, but instead supported by the ego. This is two very different perspectives, a life that operates off safety versus one that operates off growth, but is reminded not to get complacent. What's interesting about this is that in our life journey, we only ever see glimpses of our karma. Our karma is our highest evolution of self. We simply are in the presence of our karma all the time, and it's just up to us if we lean into shedding, healing, and evolving to become that highest evolution of self. A great example of this is where you may have experienced a time where you went bankrupt to integrate lessons that served you later on in the making of connections needed for your karmic pathway. But you didn't even realize that self-mastery of shedding your connection with wealth was serving as part of a bigger picture. You know that saying, everything happens for a reason? Well, I do and I don't agree with that statement. I know, contradicting, right? Not everything happens for a purposeful reason. Not everything is connected to a grand plan. However, what I do know to be true is female and male minds operate completely different, and we also have feminine and masculine energy. We have so many different things to create balance, and your karma is one of them. And everything that you bring to this world with your lessons is also creating balance. Our energy affects other people's energy. In one way, we are collectively creating these shifts together and balancing things out. We are, as energy, every single human is an energy, and we all have this life force energy within us. We are all impacting each other collectively. And so our decisions, our behaviors, our actions, our mindset collectively impact each other. Now, your karma is going to change based on the lessons that are going to be available to you with the location that you're in and the family that you're born into. That's all going to really shift and change what lessons the universe could even present to you, right? It's not predetermined prior to your birth of what those life experiences actually are going to be. You have free will still to direct your life however you wish, whilst also knowing that avoiding your karma, the universe will always catapult you back towards lessons that lead you to exploring your highest potential and karma. We never quite see the full picture of this karma during our lifetime, but we will often see the full picture of one stepping stone towards the full path. We are given so many different hints and opportunities along the way in this life experience. I want you to take a moment to reflect on some of the most influential people in the world. And I mean positively influential, by the way. But think about them. Where were they located? What kinds of opportunities were available to them in these locations? What types of families were they born into? Now, this doesn't mean you have to be born into a wealthy family. It doesn't mean you have to be born into a poor family. It doesn't mean that you had to have a certain amount of wealth at any point. But undeniably, we know that the opportunities are going to be completely different and the life lessons are going to be completely different based on where we are. Whilst many intentionally choose to live life in the flow and not take notice to what is required for them to step into karma, unconsciously, they're still receiving and completing tiny pieces of their karma, slowly evolving into expanded versions of self, with the exception of those whom actively decide to fixate on fixed mindset and strict routine and isolation to deliberately remove opportunities for growth. Think of this like your manifestations. For years before you even knew manifestation was a thing, you were already unconsciously manifesting. You can probably think of so many different things looking back that you unconsciously manifested into your life as a byproduct of your surroundings, of your experiences, of your mindset at that time, and your karma is no different here. With our karma, there are many times where we are unconsciously acting within the purpose of leaning into our karma. Our karma is always present. It is not a switch that flicks on and off. It's simply a decision of whether we want to observe it and pay attention to it and lean into it. So now you have a little context into your karma, also known as life purpose, whichever term you want to go with. For me, I like to call it the highest evolution or karma. A second important thing to note is that those around you within your karmic pathway hold a significant value to the lessons and purpose and will find a way, no matter what, to be within your pathway. If there is a lesson that you're meant to be learning in a connection, this will either find its way to you in the same person or another person and a similar situation until you pay attention and decide to lean in to that lesson. You may have already noticed this in retrogrades where things that have not been cleaned up tend to blow up and find their way back into your lap so that you can't ignore them. And what boundaries you don't clean up come back to bite you. This is where that concept of what goes around comes around kind of actually applies, even though I don't believe that that context actually applies to life purpose. It's more that saying of what you ignore is going to find its way back to you until you clean it up. If we look at it as this, what goes around comes around and what you do is going to come back to bite you, like that can't be accurate because there are many horrible things that happen to people in life that they didn't deserve, that they didn't actually do to someone else, right? So it's important to know the context around what goes around comes around is more so what is coming into your life that you're meant to learn from. And if you let it bypass you and you don't integrate it or you don't learn from it, it's going to find another channel to come back through to you. So those who hold significant value to your karma or to your highest evolution, you're going to find these people in close proximity to you. So you may marry them, you may work with them, you may share a home with them as a housemate, you may be mentored by them. Have you ever experienced a moment where you feel like your town is so interconnected because someone you know also knows other people from your life in a completely different context, and you couldn't even imagine how it could be coincidence for them to meet? There are different ways that people will show up in your life over and over and over until that connection is made for you to integrate them into your karma. Whether it is that you're meant to learn a specific life lesson off them, or whether they are there to support your karma along the way. By now, you may have already had an inkling of someone who just tends to have shown up in so many different ways, or seems to be mutually connected to so many other connections of your own. And you might have a little bit of an inkling of this person being someone who may be attached to your karma or your highest evolution. They may be someone who is temporary or permanent, and it's really going to come down to the purpose behind them being in your life. So when this comes to your manifestations and leaning into your karma, there's going to be times where you feel like you've done all this work to become a magnet for a specific lifestyle, and yet you're having your attention shifted where there are still obstacles challenging you to stay on that pathway. They're almost in a way feeling like they're pushing that manifestation that little bit further away from you and really challenging how committed you are to staying on track. In these moments, you're being invited to journey deeper into your karma, deeper into your intentions, and deeper into integrity with your values, whilst continuing to manifest, but potentially being stalled from collapsing time until you integrate new lessons that may not even be directly linked, but overall are important for you to remain evolving into your highest evolution. Your higher self is honestly described that simply in just those two words, your highest evolution. Bringing this back to the topic of manifestation, when we live in the intention of becoming our highest evolution, what we manifest is going to change. We see a shift from manifesting handbags and new shoes to manifesting with collective purpose or manifesting opportunities for growth. We see a shift in moments where collapsing time through rewriting limiting beliefs is enough, and other times where we need to integrate a level of learning before we can step forward to receive. There are many times where we are unconsciously sabotaging ourselves from stepping into our highest evolution or our karma, whichever word you want to use, simply because we are fixated on how much and how fast we can manifest on a tangible scale of temporary luxuries. I want you to let that land for a moment. Temporary luxuries. How often are we living in this life of trying to get through these checklists of how much can we manifest and getting this high of I've manifested this, I've manifested this, I've manifested this, and yet they're temporary things. It might be that new handbag, it might be that new pair of shoes, it might be that free coffee. Whatever you're manifesting, there are so many times where we can be sabotaging ourselves by distracting ourselves from other opportunities around us because we fixate too much time into those temporary luxuries. And I'm not saying not to manifest those, but what I'm saying is we need to remain open to other things around us, not just tunnel vision towards these temporary luxuries. So I ask you, how often are you leaning out of opportunities that you have no clear inkling are connected to your karma? So many are fixated on my life's purpose is this one thing, and everything beyond that almost has this sense of being less important or valuable. Have you ever heard someone who goes like, my life purpose is to do this or it's to do that? That is only one small glimpse into their karma. One glimpse, right? Think of it as one piece out of a huge puzzle. So many are fixated on it being this one thing, which is so misled. Many of these experiences linked to our karma are tiny little ones that may have zero direct link, but collectively build an accumulation for something else later on. There will be opportunities you don't even know are linked to your karma until you reflect back months or years later as you catch glimpses of more of your highest evolution and start to piece things together. So today's reflection, what if you stopped overanalyzing and looked at your challenges simply as an invite for growth, a disagreement, an opportunity for growth, a skill you have absolutely zero prior knowledge of, another opportunity for growth. Look at opportunities as potential to grow or add depth to your karma lessons to become your highest evolution. You need to practice discernment around this, around what is healthy for you to lean into and what is part of your karma, because there's going to be a difference in this. And I do teach this in my Foundations of Healing program. So I highly recommend jumping into that for more context around that. Regardless if the lesson was linked to your highest evolution that you've stepped into as an opportunity, you're going to learn something. And many times we lean out of something too early out of fear, only to have it circle back to us in another way. Remember, the universe just regurgitates a new experience because the first one didn't get your attention or you left too soon. And that is where that saying, what goes around, comes back to you and comes into fruition, where you have ignored the signs to lean into that opportunity, right? You have free will as to which opportunities you lean into, but know that they will always find a way back to giving you an invite to lean in. I invite you today to sit with the question of how much you truly value growth mindset and becoming the best version of self. Because it's important to really get honest here and know if you're someone who truly does value growth, who's going to step into those invites, or if you're someone who only values growth when it's convenient and you can see potential for immediate or short-term progress and rewards. Two very different mindsets there. Ask yourself, do you actually value growth? Do you embody that? And do you welcome challenges, or are you leaning away from your highest evolution? Where do you sit on that scale? Growth is not found in comfort, so I really invite you to get clear on where you're playing small, where you're spending time in rooms that are benefiting your ego, where you're no longer challenging yourself, and where you're just telling yourself that growth simply is going to be too hard. Where are you leaning out of your evolution? Where are you leaning out of your karma? There are so many opportunities around you. They are going to test and shift your manifestations and the timelines. But if you're willing to lean into them, there are going to be so many times where your manifestations are tested, the pathways are shifted for you to integrate further lessons. But if you lean in to that lesson, to that invite, you create room for something new to come into fruition. And don't forget, lessons don't have to be a bad thing. These lessons can be highly beneficial and highly exciting. There are so many opportunities awaiting you. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's podcast episode. I would love to hear from you over on my social media, Earth's Conscious Generation, how today's episode landed for you. And I'd really love to know if you can pinpoint a time where your manifestations were stalled because you needed to integrate deeper lessons and step into that karma. I am so grateful for you listening this far. Have an incredible week.